Good evening.
Hello, happy Monday.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the conversation. Tonight, we are going to be exploring the idea of communicating with your mask on because we're living in a world where there's a lot of mask wearing, and I'm not talking about the kind that goes around your ears and across your face.
Here at the Love Seat, we desire to be transparent. We desire to share from our own experiences. We've been married for 21 years. We have 5 kids. Infidelity is part of our story. Separation and reconciliation, a complete just transformation through the grace of Jesus. And we want to share and encourage, and our hearts truly are to give you something to consider and to be challenged by and to maybe talk with your spouse about so that you can have a more rich marriage in your own life.
Absolutely. Well said. That's exactly what we want to do. And it's another Monday evening, so it's another Facebook Live. And tonight we are talking about communicating with your mask on. And what are we talking about?
So it's those tendencies that you have, those quirks that make you you, those things that you're born with, and then you have life experiences and they lead you to be a certain way, or to interpret life in a certain way, or to have a reaction when somebody says something and you tend towards something else. So as an example, if somebody was to give maybe some neutral feedback and you tend to take it really personally, or you think and think and think on it, and it's something that just really ruins your day, and it was just a simple passing comment on the other person's behalf. If it is something that you continually notice, maybe you have friendships and you just are frustrated with certain things or having struggles with something, and you kind of maybe realize that you are the common denominator instead of maybe the other people having issues with communication or showing up on time, or realizing that maybe it's you. I think something that we all kind of know is our Enneagram or our Myers-Briggs letters, or what else is there?
Personality. I took that recently.
Those are popular right now. So the things that make you who you are, for those who are people pleasers, then you tend towards pleasing people, and that can be a strength and a weakness. Okay. So that's kind of a broad explanation, but that's what we're talking about when it comes to your mask and what your filter for communication is. Yeah,
so we bring that into our marriages because there's a lot of conversations you can have about different masks that you wear, and we're mostly obviously concerned with the one in your marriage, the mask that you wear. We want to understand that what makes you unique, that's important, and we never want to say be someone that you're not. However, those experiences that Carrie was talking about and the reactions that you have to your experiences, they can cause you to use the mask as a crutch. And in your marriage, you really don't want anything. And I say really don't want anything because I guess there are times when we put on a mask to spare the other person's feelings.
Oh, sure.
Not in a lying way, not in a deceptive way, but there are times when we have to choose our words carefully, and that's a sort of a mask. But generally, when we're talking in marriages, you want to be exposed, right? So right now, obviously, people are wearing masks so they're not contagious, and they do it to keep things to themselves, to keep it all close to them, and we don't want to share that. And in our marriage, that's the exact opposite of what we want to be. We want to infect the other person with who we are and with our love to them. And if we have a mask on, then what we're doing is we can sometimes think that we're helping the other person. Really, you're just protecting yourself, because you can feel like if I expose myself, or if I am who I truly am, is that going to change the way that they think about me? And I think young marriages can definitely struggle with this, because you're getting to know one another, and sometimes we're afraid for those little quirks that we have. Maybe you snore at night. Someone's told you, and you're like, "Oh no, I don't want to snore for my spouse, so I'm going to make sure they always go to bed first." That's a kind of a silly mask, but when we talk about having a mask for communication purposes, that is a filter that we're allowing the experiences with our spouse to kind of inhibit or prohibit productive conversation so that you can move past. Do you have any examples?
No.
Nothing's
coming to mind, but I wanted to add that
I didn't prep you before, so
I'm sure I'll come up with one.
All right.
It's not human nature to be vulnerable.
No,
you don't generally want to be vulnerable, but
no,
in your
we're very
marriage,
we're very defensive,
yeah.
and it comes very common to just keep everything guarded.
Yeah, I
like to use the.
We have an issue in our family where we correct a lot.
Yes, and we can just keep it to you and I. We have to drag the kids into this one, but yeah, because I do enough of the correcting.
But
so give an example of that so that they understand. And if you don't have an example, I've got one.
We have a like. I think maybe somebody else can relate to the correcting. But
Ooh.
I tend to, it kind of just comes naturally for you.
I don't shake my head because it's not that it does come naturally. I shake my head going, "Oh, Doug, why do you correct when thou dost not needeth to correcteth?"
And you don't always know better.
I don't. I'm not always right.
But you just feel like you need to add your 2 cents. And this is something that you've been aware of for, I guess, decades now. We've been married long enough. Jeepers. But you've been aware of it for a while. And it's still something that it's just... as I'm going through this example, it's hard. I mean, I don't know if that's
this
part
isn't
of your
an example.
mask.
This is kind of like a general overview. We want an example.
You will, you'll say something to me, and I can't think of a specific example. But I'll be hurt because you said something about, I might make a general statement and you offer a specific, and it just wasn't necessary. But it makes me feel like I was wrong.
Right.
No, wrong.
Yeah. Very well. Yeah, that was good.
So, but I am also aware that I tend to feel a little defensive, and that's part of my mask is that part of it's my personality being an introvert, and when I talk, I've thought through what I'm going to say. And I think sometimes introverts can kind of feel a little slighted or a little out of place because we aren't as readily heard because we aren't talking as much. So for whatever reason, I can be easily offended. And so those two put together are kind of a rough combination.
And it's not that I'm the only one that does it, because there is correction that happens in a lot of our communication. So details are only important, like specific details are only important if specific details are necessary. Outside of that, if they are not necessary, specific details really don't matter. And I say that because we spend so much time not listening to what the person's saying, but hearing something not quite right and then being ready to correct. It can be as simple as a movie title. As a husband, I've had to learn to just figure out what movie you're talking about when you're like that one guy and that one girl that do that one thing. And the Lord has just blessed me somehow to I pick it out of the air.
That's exactly right, because I am really bad with remembering movie titles. I can remember if you describe the trailer or if you describe part of the movie, then it will jog my memory. But I have truly said the guy with the hair that does the thing in the airplane. And
somehow
you know what
I magically know. I either know too much about movies or there's just some grace in our marriage.
Okay, so the tricky part is identifying your own mask.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Can you self-identify your own mask, or do you need your spouse to point it out?
Oh, that sounds like a bad idea.
I'm not saying the people should do that. I'm just, a general question is, do you believe that you are able to identify your own mask, or is it something that you can't see?
Well, and definitely, it's not just, while we are focusing on marriage, it is helpful to look at your kids, your relationship with your kids, your relationship with coworkers, friends, and you definitely, there will be some commonality that will help shed some light on your marriage.
So if you are at the office, if you're at the office, I mean, if you're normally at the office, who knows right now, and you go to the proverbial water cooler, and your friends are talking about a show that they watched, or they're talking about something they heard on the news, and you walk up to that conversation and everyone disperses because they know you've got something to add to the conversation, but not in a way of like group sharing, then you might have a problem. Because they no longer value your opinion because you're generally coming along and providing some sort of correction. We want to really work on listening. Listening. You don't even need to worry about your mask if you're listening. What happens is that we're so busy thinking about speaking that's why we have to have our mask on, because again, we're guarding ourselves. We're not really listening to the other person. We're worried about how we're going to respond, or the fact that we feel this some sort of draw that I have got to speak the truth. If that address has a drive or an avenue as a part of it, and they don't say the drive or the avenue, I better make sure they know there's a drive or an avenue. Now, we live in a day with technology that if you type in the number and the name of a street and you don't add a drive or an avenue, it's going to find it. I promise you. That's a detail that's not necessary. If your spouse has been bitten by a snake and you know that you need to suck the poison with your mouth, or you know the exact snake it is so that when you go to the doctor, you can tell the doctor it was a African purple-bellied, I don't know my snakes. And the doctor goes, oh, I know the exact antidote. That's a great time. Chime in. Brother, all day long, speak that. But if you're just talking about the fact that snakes like to bite, then you don't need to know exactly what type of snake it is. You don't need to know the anti-venom. You're not really adding to this conversation. And I'm being a little bit sarcastic and silly, but it's this point that we are, if you're like me, you can relentlessly pursue truth where it doesn't matter. It's not helping, and it just makes the other person shut down. So when we bring this into the conversations in our marriage, can you think of a time where those details are not needed and the listening or just the conversation is more general or abstract, and where those details aren't really necessary?
Maybe when you're downloading at the end of the day, and
Perfect.
you've been apart.
Yep.
And you're just catching up. Now, yeah, obviously if you're at date night, or if it's a time around the family table and you're having dinner, and then it makes sense you can get down to the details, and you can have a back and forth, and you can have a heated debate or friendly, banter or whatever it might be. But the act of correcting. Another mask, I think, is the not listening or not responding to the other person with questions, having an interaction, but just waiting until they're done to say what you've been thinking about.
Yeah.
So that's something that, just as you talk and as you're listening, are you listening, or are you thinking about what you're going to say? That's definitely another mask, and can affect your marriage.
Are you telling me that when you tell me about your day and you're listing off things that are going on, that my input is less important than me just hearing and empathizing with you?
Yep.
You're telling me that when you tell me about your day, that you're just not hanging and waiting for the wisdom that drips from this, just even the extra drips from the beard, not even from the mouth, just from the beard.
No,
No,
it's not that important to me. It was my day, You should be waiting with bated breath to hear what I did
That's exactly right.
while we were apart.
It's about listening to the other person. And our masks, specifically tonight, this mask that we're really talking about is removing the mask of being able to trust one another to share. Because if you think all I'm doing is listening to you so that I can give you some sort of pearl of wisdom, does that put you in a place where you really want to share how you're feeling and your emotional state?
No.
Am I building trust in that situation?
That's a long question.
That was
no. Yeah, if you feel brave enough, ask your spouse some what they think your mask might be. If that's not a term that makes sense to you, if you want to use something different, if they're not listening to this and it would take too long to explain it, what are kind of some of your...
They're not listening to this? What are you talking about? I
tendencies?
think everybody's listening to this, aren't they?
Right.
Why? It's replayed on Facebook. We're uploading it to YouTube. Just have them watch.
Ask them some of... Oh, gosh, what would be a good question? I know I've asked you...
We'll get some ice cream first. I mean, have like a sweet treat so that when you're having this rough conversation, at least there's something that, since it could go wrong, that you can enjoy.
We had a date 2 weeks ago where we just went to... That's a funny thing. We tried to go to 3 different places.
Right.
And they were closed.
Yeah.
So we went to the grocery store, to the deli, got
Yep.
deli kind of food, and went to a park.
Yep.
And I remember at that point I said, I'm good. I'm in a good mood. I don't remember the word that I used. Is there anything that I need to know? Have you seen anything? Are you remembering this conversation?
Yeah.
So you can help me.
Yeah.
I don't remember my specific wording, but it was to the effect of, if there's something that you've been wanting to say to me, or a concern or an observation or something that some feedback, I can listen right now. Because it's not very often that you can say what you're doing is really annoying without getting into a fight, or
Right.
without really being heard.
Yeah.
Really being heard.
I think it's really difficult to understand what your mask is if you're not listening. So I would suggest, before you have that conversation, because that could kind of explode, first have a date night where you truly are just focused on listening. You're not even really going to respond. I mean, obviously, if she asks you a question, respond. I mean, normal etiquette of conversation. But the purpose of it is to listen and start building that trust. Because as that trust is built, then a more intimate conversation is going to happen, where they're going to expose more of themselves. And you can actually slowly remove your own mask, because you're not worried about yourself. You're not protecting yourself anymore. The conversation is more about the other person.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because the times that... So I'm not the talker in our relationship, and the time that we've
Imagine
had
that.
conversations and you don't say something, I'll keep talking and say something that I maybe didn't intend to. Or extrovert, introvert, I start to share more just from my heart, and I might think out loud, whereas you are thinking out loud all the time.
All the time.
Just as extroverts tend to.
Absolutely. Well, I'm thinking out loud that we've given them a lot to process.
I sure hope that they can come to a good conclusion, because
Yeah.
it was a little abstract.
Yeah. Well, and it's more things that we can break down, but it's just important, the listening in marriages, and making sure you're not listening with that mask, that filter of responding or trying to protect yourself. So if you have questions, or you want to reach out or connect with us, we'd love for you to do that. connect@theloveseed.org is our email address, or through Facebook. We do have a YouTube channel. And like I said, this will be posted on there as well, so we encourage you to share it with others. Let us know what you think. Any suggestions you have, any comments, we would gladly accept them. And, I think we just lost picture. So you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.
Have a great week, everybody.